and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Think about that unique gadget or maybe a handcrafted item you ordered online from another country sometime. Remember how it just showed up. No extra hassle, no surprise fees. That seemingly simple experience, for decades, it was possible because of this quiet, pretty complex policy. And it just got a seismic overhaul. Today, we're diving deep into the U.S. de minimis exemption. We'll explore what it was, the surprising reasons behind its recent termination, and the massive ripples it's already sending through global e-commerce. Our mission. Let's break down this complex policy change, uncover its kind of hidden history, understand its immediate and frankly startling impact, and ultimately figure out what this means for you, the consumer, and the future of how we all shop online. Okay, let's try and unpack this. For many of us, before August 29, 2025, that phrase de minimis exemption, it probably flew completely under the radar. But this wasn't some new thing, was it? It had a pretty long history.
Oh, yeah, surprisingly long and winding history. It actually began quite innocently, way back in 1938.
1938? Wow.
Yeah. And the de minimis exemption started at just $1.
$1.
$1. Its original purpose was purely administrative, really, just to avoid the government spending more time and money collecting tiny tariffs than the tariffs themselves were actually worth.
So like a bureaucratic shortcut.
Exactly. Keep the system moving smoothly, don't sweat the small stuff.
But something really changed down the line, didn't it? It wasn't just this quiet rule forever. I think around 2015, things shifted.
Absolutely. The real turning point, the big one, was the 2015 Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act. You might hear it called TFTEA.
TFTEA, right.
And this act dramatically increased the de minimis threshold. It went from $200 all the way up to $800.
Whoa, from $200 to $800.
Huge jump. And crucially, its purpose explicitly shifted then. It wasn't just about convenience anymore. The language was clear. It was designed to actively promote e-commerce growth and deliver, quote, significant economic benefits for U.S. businesses and consumers alike.
Okay, so how did that massive jump in the threshold, going up to $800, impact the sheer volume of packages coming into the U.S.? You mentioned an explosion earlier.
It was exponential. I mean, truly stunning growth. This single change fueled an incredible surge. The number of duty-free parcels entering the U.S. just skyrocketed. We're talking from about 134 million back in 2015 to over 1.36 billion by fiscal year 2024.
1.3 billion.
Billion, yeah. That's a tenfold increase in less than a decade. And it fundamentally underpinned that whole direct-to-consumer, the DDC e-commerce model that, so many of us got used to.
So, okay, if this policy was explicitly changed to promote e-commerce, and it clearly worked, looking at those numbers, why get rid of it? This wasn't just a sudden flip-flop, was it? There was a bigger picture.
Not sudden. No, not really isolated either. This termination, it's actually best understood as the second phase of a broader U.S. strategy, a strategy to sort of reprice international small parcel shipping and dismantle what the government saw as unfair subsidies.
Yeah, phase 2. What was phase 1 then?
Phase 1 actually tackled something maybe even more obscure for most people. The so-called shipping loophole related to the Universal Postal Union, the UPU.
The UPU, okay. That does sound a bit like something out of a spy novel.
Yeah.
What was that loophole? How did it work?
Well, what's fascinating, or maybe frustrating depending on your view, is how the UPU's tiered system created this massive market distortion. Basically, it allowed certain countries designated as transitional, and China was the big one here, to pay artificially low fees called terminal dues for the final delivery part.
The last mile.
Exactly. The last mile delivery of their small international packages within target countries like the U.S. And this led to a truly bizarre situation. It was often cheaper to ship a small package from, say, Beijing to New York than it was to ship that same package from South Carolina to New York.
Get out. Cheaper internationally than domestically.
Yep. Because the UPU rate subsidized it. The U.S. Postal Service was reportedly losing hundreds of millions a year because of this setup.
Wow, okay. That does sound like an imbalance. So how did the U.S. government tackle that before even touching de minimis?
Well, they took a pretty dramatic step. In October 2018, the Trump administration threatened to withdraw from the UPU entirely.
Pull out completely.
Yeah, which was unprecedented, cited this unfair system. And that threat, it worked. It forced a special UPU Congress in 2019. And that led to reforms kicking in by July 2020 that allowed the U.S. to basically self-declare its rates for handling inbound international mail.
Oh, okay.
So that effectively ended those deep postal subsidies from countries like China. And it set a clear precedent,
Right.
a willingness to challenge international agreements seen as unfairly benefiting foreign shippers.
Right. So phase one closed the UPU shipping loophole. Now on to phase two,
Yeah.
the de minimis exemption itself. What were the main reasons the White House gave for terminating this, framing it as even a national security priority?
Yeah, the framing was very specific. The White House explicitly cited the urgent need to close what it called a catastrophic loophole. And the reason, they said it was being exploited to transport two main things: deadly synthetic opioids, think fentanyl,
Right.
and also massive amounts of counterfeit goods.
And was there data to back that up?
Well, official enforcement data released for fiscal year 2024 painted a pretty stark picture. It showed de minimis shipments accounted for something like 98% of all drug interdiction cases.
98%.
98. And 97% of intellectual property rights infringement cases, so counterfeit goods.
Okay, that's significant. And was this policy change aimed broadly, or were specific e-commerce players kind of in the crosshairs?
Oh, specific players were definitely explicitly targeted. Companies like Shein and Temu.
The fast fashion giants.
Exactly. Their entire business models were, you could argue, fundamentally built upon the de minimis exemption. It's what allowed them to ship millions upon millions of low-value parcels directly from Chinese factories to U.S. consumers. And in doing so, they effectively bypassed potentially billions of dollars in U.S. tariffs.
Right.
And we saw a preview of the impact. There was a partial suspension just for China and Hong Kong packages back in May 2025, and reports showed that led to something like a 58% drop in Temu's U.S. daily active visitors.
Wow, 58%. That really shows their reliance.
Absolutely. Underscored just how sensitive their operations were to this specific policy.
And this wasn't just, a plan to repeal it eventually. The timeline got crunched, right?
Yeah.
Dramatically accelerated.
It really did. President Trump signed an executive order on July 30th, 2025. And that order fully suspended the de minimis threshold for all countries, effective just weeks later on August 29th, 2025.
August 29th. That's fast.
Super fast. It moved up the original repeal date, which was supposed to be way out in July 2027, by almost 2 full years.
2 years earlier.
Yeah. And some analysts, they even called this rapid acceleration weaponized uncertainty.
Weaponized uncertainty. What's the thinking behind that phrase?
Well, the idea is that by giving international partners, shippers, platforms, everyone so little time to adapt, and frankly, very little clear guidance initially on how the new system would work, it created immediate, widespread operational chaos. It wasn't just ending the policy, it was ending it in a way designed to cause maximum immediate disruption.
So preventing any kind of gradual workaround, forcing an immediate stop.
That seems to be the interpretation, yes. A swift, decisive blow intended to reshape the landscape literally overnight.
Okay, so August 29th, 2025 arrives. The policy takes effect. What happened? What was the immediate impact for, everyday consumers, global businesses?
Oh, first, there was an immediate and pretty distinctly negative market reaction. You saw it in stock prices. Etsy's stock, for example, it plummeted 14% in just the 5 trading days leading up to the policy taking effect.
14% before it even started.
Yeah, just on the anticipation. And then it fell over 8% more on the Monday of the week it was implemented.
Wow.
eBay also saw significant stock price declines, clearly reflected investor concerns about the disruption to cross-border trade.
Okay, that's a huge hit to value. What about the actual, nuts and bolts of shipping? Did packages just stop moving? Did things grind to a halt?
The operational chaos was almost immediate and it was widespread. The sheer suddenness of the policy change, combined with, frankly, a lack of clear, detailed guidance from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the CBP.
Right, the agency handling.
It just led to immense confusion everywhere. You had many international postal services. We're talking Australia, Japan, Taiwan, India, Thailand, South Korea, New Zealand, Italy, Netherlands, Austria, France. I mean, the list goes on.
Lots of countries.
They all announced temporary suspensions of parcel shipments to the U.S.
Suspensions. Just stop sending stuff.
Temporarily, yes. They cited the complete absence of any kind of global system to prepay these new duties and just general uncertainty about the new rules. Even the big express giants like DHL announced they would temporarily stop accepting commercial customer parcels destined for the U.S.
Wow. So suddenly, trying to get that unique, maybe handcrafted mug from a small artist in Portugal or a vintage watch from Japan, it became incredibly difficult, if not impossible, at least for a while there.
Exactly that. Imagine the frustration. both for the buyer who wanted that specific item and for the seller whose livelihood might depend on those international sales.
Absolutely.
And many individual sellers, the ones on platforms like Etsy and eBay, they simply had no choice. They had to halt their shipments to the U.S. too. Now, there is an initial 6-month transition period in place.
Okay.
During this time, importers get an option. They can pay either an ad valorem tax, that's just a percentage of the goods value, or a fixed specific tariff per parcel.
Fixed fees. How much are those?
They range. It's $80 if the origin duties are 16% or less, $160 if they're between 16 and 25%, and $200 if the duties are over 25%.
Okay, so still significant costs either way.
Oh, yeah. Regardless of the option, it means significant new costs and, just as importantly, complex new processes for everyone involved.
This really sounds like a massive headache, especially for anyone selling online, particularly the smaller businesses, the micro-entrepreneurs. How are platforms like Etsy and eBay and, their millions of sellers really feeling what's being called this destructive pincer attack?
Well, for Etsy, it truly is being described as a double crisis.
Yep.
It hits their global artisan economy from two sides.
How so?
First, international gross merchandise sales, the GMS that accounted for nearly half, 47% of Etsy's total business in 2023.
Almost half their business international.
Right. So new tariffs and complex processes directly hit those international sellers who are a huge part of their platform. But second, many U.S. sellers on Etsy actually relied on de minimis for affordable overseas sourcing of raw materials, beads, fabrics, components. Ah, right. Their own supply chain.
Exactly. And those costs are now going to drastically increase for them too, so it hits both their supply chain and their sales channels. It's a real squeeze.
Yeah, that really is a pincer. And someone described this as turning millions of micro-entrepreneurs into unpaid customs brokers. That phrase really sticks.
It does, because it captures the burden.
I mean, for a small business owner maybe making handmade jewelry in their spare time, how realistic is it for them to suddenly become an expert on HS codes and international tariff calculations?
It's an enormous new administrative burden. That's exactly the challenge. It's a formidable non-tariff barrier, just the complexity itself.
And what about eBay? They're different from Etsy, more secondhand collectibles.
Right, and for eBay, analysts generally don't see it as an existential survival threat like it might be for some smaller operations. But it's definitely being called a strategic blow.
A blow to what?
To its key differentiator against, say, Amazon, which is that vast, diverse global inventory of secondhand, antique, and collectible goods. Unique stuff. Right, the stuff you can't easily find elsewhere.
Exactly. And increasing the costs for these unique, often lower value items, it fundamentally undermines that key selling point. Even eBay's own CEO, Jamie Iannone, acknowledged publicly that the policy could impact their company revenue.
And Shopify sellers too, I imagine. Anyone using small parcel international shipping.
Deeply affected, yes. Anyone relying on that D2C model for international sales is feeling this.
And speaking of how sellers operate, this must force a huge change in their shipping models, right? Is that old way delivered duty unpaid, DDU, where the buyer gets a surprise bill when the package arrives, is that basically finished now?
That's a really critical shift happening. And yes, the consensus is the new reality absolutely necessitates a mandatory move away from DDU.
Why mandatory, though?
Well, think about it from the customer experience side. Those unexpected duty fees showing up for buyers under DDU, they frequently led to people rejecting the parcels.
Oh, right. I'm not paying that extra charge I didn't expect.
Exactly, and that leads to returned goods, lost sales, negative customer reviews. It's bad for business. So the move is towards delivered duty paid, or DDP.
DDP. And what does that involve?
With DDP, the seller calculates and prepays all the estimated duties and taxes up front, usually building it into the price or shipping cost shown to the buyer.
Okay, so the buyer sees the final price.
Ideally, yes, but this transfers the entire burden of customs compliance accurately identifying HS codes.
Those are the product classification codes, right?
Yes, globally standardized codes customs agencies use. So identifying the right code, calculating the specific tariffs for the U.S. based on that code and origin, handling all the complex paperwork. That entire headache lands squarely on the seller.
Which, as you said, is daunting for a micro-enterprise.
Hugely daunting. And it can create significant cash flow problems, too, because sellers have to prepay these duties before they even get paid by the customer sometimes.
Wow. And the cost shock itself, beyond the complexity, is staggering. Could you give us another vivid example or two, just to really hammer home what these fees mean?
Certainly. Let's take a hypothetical, previously duty-free $200 order coming from China. Now, with an estimated, let's say, 125% potential tariff plus new processing fees, its total landed cost could, theoretically, skyrocket to around $460.
From $200 to $460. More than double.
Easily. Or take something smaller, like that handmade ceramic cup from Portugal we mentioned, valued at maybe €40, which is around $45–50. That could now incur an additional $9 or so in duties and fees. That's like a 20% price increase right there.
Okay, still significant.
But where it gets really punitive is with those fixed fees, especially for lower value items. Remember, the average de minimis parcel value in 2023 was around $51.
$51, right.
If that parcel now gets hit with the minimum $80 fixed fee.
Wait, an $80 fee on a $51 item?
Exactly. That translates to a, quote, punitive 157% effective tariff. It makes that transaction just completely economically unfeasible. Nobody's going to do that.
No kidding. So faced with this completely new landscape, these costs, this complexity, what does an e-commerce platform or an international seller actually do now? How do they adapt?
Yeah, adaptation is key. For the big platforms, Etsy, eBay, Shopify, they're really being urged to make significant platform strategy adjustments. Meaning, first, aggressively investing in upgrading their logistics offerings. They need to partner with major carriers like DHL, UPS, FedEx to offer seamless DDP shipping solutions. Make it easy for sellers.
Okay, handle the complexity for them.
As much as possible, yes. Second, increase system transparency. That means displaying all-inclusive prices with duties directly at checkout so the buyer knows the true cost up front. No surprises.
That seems crucial for trust.
Absolutely. And third, actively support local warehousing or third-party logistics 3PLs for their sellers. Think services like eBay Fulfillment or using established players like ShipBob, EasyShip, maybe even Amazon's FBA network where appropriate. Get inventory closer to the U.S. customer.
Right, bulk ship it in, then fulfill domestic.
That's one major strategy shift, yes.
And what about for you, the individual seller? Especially if you're a smaller international business, maybe, say, based in Taiwan. We saw some specific advice for them.
Yes, the guidance gets pretty practical at the seller level. For a, say, Taiwanese seller adaptation, the advice starts with a hard look at your cost structure inventory. Really review your product gross margins. Calculate your actual profitability with these new U.S. tariffs and shipping costs factored in. Double-check, triple-check your HS codes are correct.
Know your numbers, basically.
Precisely. Then think about logistics and warehousing adjustments. Seriously, consider using those U.S. overseas warehouses or 3PLs for bulk exports if your volume justifies it. If that's not immediately possible, then you absolutely must offer DDP shipping and figure out how to manage it.
Okay, and pricing. Product.
For product and pricing strategy, the advice is try to increase your average order value, maybe through bundles or multi-buy offers, make each shipment count more. Also, focus on products that can justify a higher price point, things that are truly customized, designed, handmade, unique value propositions.
Things people will pay more for.
Exactly. And again, display those all-inclusive prices to buyers. Transparency is king.
That makes a lot of sense. Diversification must be key too, right? Not relying solely on the U.S. market anymore.
Oh, absolutely critical. Market and customer diversification is huge. Reduce that reliance on the U.S. market. Explore opportunities in Europe where platforms like Etsy are also popular. Look at Southeast Asia. Shopee, Lazada are big there. The Middle East has Noon, Amazon AE. And importantly, track the duty-free thresholds in other countries. Where can you still ship easily?
Spread the risk.
Spread the risk, find new opportunities. And finally, regulation and compliance cannot be overstated. Ensure every customs declaration is accurate. Invoice value, country of origin, HS code. Don't even think about underreporting value or misclassification to try and dodge duties.
Because you'll get caught.
You'll likely get caught, face severe fines, maybe get banned from shipping. It's not worth the risk. Keep meticulous accounting records, too, for tax purposes and potential refund processing.
Okay, so zooming out one last time, what does this all mean for the big picture? The overall e-commerce landscape, and for consumers like you listening right now, shopping online?
I think the main takeaway is that the era of truly frictionless, super low-cost, direct-to-consumer, cross-border trade, at least as we knew it for small parcels, is over.
A fundamental shift.
Yes. The new landscape is going to be defined by, frankly, higher costs, greater complexity, and probably longer lead times for many international goods. Success for businesses, large and small, will now hinge on things like supply chain resilience, a real mastery of customs compliance, and demonstrating thorough price transparency to consumers.
And for us, the consumers.
For you, the consumer, this directly translates to higher prices, especially potentially for lower-income households who benefited most from those ultra-affordable goods. And it also likely means a reduced product variety, particularly for those unique, handmade, or collectible items you might find on platforms like Etsy and eBay. Some sellers just won't be able to make it work anymore.
And ultimately, this policy, even if it was aimed squarely at players like Shein and Temu, it's likely to consolidate market power, isn't it?
Yes, that seems to be a significant, perhaps unintended consequence. While it might be effective against those specific fast fashion giants, the policy inadvertently consolidates market power to large domestic retailers and platforms. Think of Amazon, think Walmart.
Why them?
Because these huge players possess the scale, the capital, and the logistical maturity to navigate these complex new import rules, to absorb costs, to set up the warehousing, to manage the compliance. They can handle it. Smaller players struggle. And the collapse of Wish.com, remember them?
Yeah, they were huge for a while.
Their business model heavily relied on those old UPU subsidies and de minimis shipping, mostly from China. Their decline serves as a really powerful case study, a cautionary tale maybe, about the inherent fragility of business models built solely on exploiting regulatory loopholes or arbitrage.
So we've really taken a deep dive today. We've seen how this seemingly obscure customs rule, born way back in 1938 as a simple shortcut, quietly evolved into an e-commerce supercharger, boosting that incredible growth, then became framed as a national security loophole, and finally a policy shift that has just profoundly reshape how you, the listener, might shop online for unique and international goods. It's really a testament to how global trade is constantly in motion, isn't it? Always evolving, always adapting.
Absolutely. This policy change, it really isn't just about tariffs or fees. It signals a fundamental structural shift in the entire global e-commerce ecosystem. It challenges businesses to become much more resilient, to adapt their supply chains with incredible speed, and critically, to be truly transparent about costs. And, it asks consumers, all of us, to fundamentally reevaluate the true costs and maybe the true value of convenience and those unique international finds that we might cherish.
So a final thought for you to consider. As you think about your next online purchase, especially if it's coming from abroad, what hidden costs and complexities might now be lurking behind that Add to Cart button? And how will your choices as a consumer, or maybe even as a seller, shape this new, evolving world of global e-commerce? We'd love to hear what stands out to you from this deep dive.